What's up, guys? Easy Mac here, bringing you guys some new content. I know I haven't done a lot lately, but I'm gonna try to start bringing back, the podcast, some of these video clips like this, talking about some of the stats, some topics that interest me, and that I want to share some thoughts on. So, first one, heading into Major Three, I wanted to talk about a team that was knocking on the door of being a top four team in stage two, and then hasn't really been anywhere close to that in stage three. That is the Las Vegas Legion. So Las Vegas Legion has been a big talking point just because they were actually a very good team in stage two. They went 6-4. They finished, fifth in the Major Two qualifiers with a 5-2 record. They ended up finishing top 8 at Major Two, and that was kind of like a sign of what's going to come. And then they just struggled really badly in Major Three qualifiers. They've had 2 roster changes now, and no one's really talking about a couple of reasons why this happened. And so I want to do that today. So to start off, I'm going to talk about what everyone else has been talking about, right? Players. The roster changes that they made. They came in with Purge. They decided, they can't do this. We're going to switch off Purge. Picked up ASUM. At the time, I thought it was a good move. Personally, I did not think Purge was a very good player for Legion. I still think he can be a good player. I didn't really love that they made him switch into a role that he didn't play in Challengers, and then his floor was just too low for me. And now looking at his individual player stats, he has 2 of the lowest KDs of the season in a series. He dropped a .54 against Carolina, and then he dropped a .46 against Miami. And then also at Major 2, he had a .67 against Toronto, right? And then against the Thieves, which was the last match he played, where they lost 3-2, he had a .75. And it's the thing with Challengers players, which I'm going to talk about in another video, is there's actually a lot of Challengers players that could come in, have impact on the map, right? You get picked up because of your peak play, right? What you can be, your potential, but you get dropped because of your floor, right? So if your floor is too low, that's where they're going to make that change. And look, I thought the trio of Attach, Geo, and Nero was a very good trio. I thought they were good enough to be a lock in the top 6 for the rest of the season. Each of those players have their strengths and their weaknesses. In the past, all 3 of those players, honestly, Attach and Nero, they were good at some games, not good at others. They would struggle in a certain game mode or two. But this year they were really clicking. And then you bring in Geo, who is a Challengers player. He has his peaks, but he also has those valleys that he's still working on that consistency as a player. And I think eventually he's going to be a very, very good player for the Legion. You see it in some of these maps he has. Like this stage right now, he's just been so good in hardpoint. The previous stage, he was doing good in hardpoint, but he was also doing very good in control as well. So I think eventually he's going to be very good. So now you have those 3 as your core. The 4th player you have is actually very important. People don't really talk about this too often. Your 4th player obviously is going to be your glue guy, your fill the gaps guy. But what you really want out of your 4th guy is to not have a very, very low floor, right? Because your 3-star players are not always going to be clicking at the same time, right? Sometimes your star players are not going to have good maps, and you still want to win those series. That's something where Dallas in the past, Atlanta in the past, when your star players aren't clicking, you're still able to grind out those maps. You're still able to get maps even though you're not playing at your best, right? And to do that, your 4th player has to have a relatively high floor. So then when your star players aren't doing well, you don't have somebody that's doing even worse that's kind of holding back your team. And that's why I thought with ASUM coming in, I didn't think ASUM was the best fit, but I thought he was a better fit than Purge. And of course, like ASUM did not do well. Like I don't really want to talk about it because it was just that bad. I don't want to rag on it. Obviously, it's not just one person. It's a team thing. It didn't work. It just didn't click, right? So now they bring in Ojani. And Ojani actually had a respectable first couple of series. After the last week that he just played, he was a .93 overall KD. He has a 1.19 in hard point. He just had a really bad control in the one series they did play. Sorry, one series over the weekend. He had a 0.47 in the control, so it kind of held him back. But he did good in the hard points. He did good enough to where it's like, okay, I can see where this is going. Get more practice. They weren't really a good S&D team this stage. They were a terrible control team this stage. So as long as your hard point starts turning around, which is what we're going to touch on soon, that's a good sign for me. So the real question is, can Vegas rebound with Ojani in the team now, right? Like, is this the stability that you needed to turn into a good team? So I want to touch on some of the star players. All right. So now Nero and Gio have actually had almost identical numbers, stage 2 to stage 3, right? Nero has a 1.1 in both stages. Gio has a 1.05 in both stages. Again, Gio, his impact in hard points crazy right now. Nero's had very good impact in S&D. He went from a 0.87 KD last stage in S&D. Right now he has a 1.16. He's winning over half his opening duels. He's averaging 0.83 kills per round, which is just, it's very good. He's performing really, really well. And then looking at his control, he actually got better in control. He had a 1.02 last stage. He was a 1.11. He's getting more kills. He's getting more ticks. He's doing more damage. Much more damage per 10 minutes. He's averaging about 500 more damage per 10 minutes, which is a lot. He's just doing a lot more in those two modes. His hardpoint cooled down a little bit. Nothing really to be concerned about. He's an entry SMG. He's playing at a fast pace. He's doing very, very well. The red flag that I saw instantly when I started looking over the Vegas Legion, trying to see what's been going wrong with them, outside of that fourth player, obviously, was Attach. So Attach had a 1.12 in stage 2. He had a 78.7 non-traded kill percentage. He had a 1.2 respawn KD, and he had a 1.25 S&D KD, right? That was stage 2. Lights out. Probably the best Call of Duty we've seen Attach play in a pretty long time. He looked like he was in his bag. And then you go to this stage, and he had a 1.03 overall KD, so a 0.17 difference. It's a big step down, right? His non-traded kill percentage was a 78.7 last stage. That's insanely high, right? That was second behind, technically behind our cities, but for a player that played the whole entire stage, that led everybody. And then he goes down to a 74, non-traded kill percentage this stage. Again, that's just a big step down. And then let's look at the two main modes that you play in 4 out of the 5 maps in the series. You had a 1.2 hardpoint KD last stage. He dropped down to a 1.02. So again, that's a big drop off. 1.25 last stage in S&D. He was averaging 200 ADR, average damage per round, 200. He was winning 60% of his opening duels. Now let's look at this stage, right? This stage he has a 0.93 in S&D. So that's huge. You're going down a 0.3, right? Just 0.3 drop off in your form in that, right? That's a major drop. He's getting way less kills, way less damage. He's still winning those opening duels, but his non-traded kill percentage in S&D went from an 84.3% to a 66.7%. So 1/3 of his kills are getting traded instantly. So Attach took a big individual step down. And again, like that could be because of team instability. That stage 2 form could still be there. Team instability could be a major factor in that, but it's still not a great look, right? So that's one red flag we have. And then we're going to move over to their just overall team performances, right? And heading into this stage, we had one of the biggest map pool changes we've had in between majors in a very long time. We had Invasion Hardpoint Go and Skid Row Hardpoint Go. In came 6-star and Vista. And then we had a S&D map pool change as well. That didn't really affect Vegas too much, but the Hardpoint one was devastating, right? Last stage, they were 3-1 in Invasion. They were 2-0 in Skid Row. That's a 501 record. That disappears, right? Out the door. Comes in, now we bring in 6-star and Vista, which again doesn't really suit this team because they didn't have 2 very good SMGs. They had Nero, who was playing well. They had Purge, who wasn't really an SMG to begin with, and he kind of had a lower floor on the SMG. So those two maps are not going to be the maps you want to play. Whereas Atlanta, Toronto, Texas, they really like those maps. Miami really likes those maps. Um, you know, LA Thieves have played both those maps a decent amount. So it hurt them a lot, right? And then you look at Karachi. So Karachi is the biggest difference for me. So they were 3-1 last stage. They led the league. Now this is kind of like a stat I've been trying to bring in the broadcast. I'm gonna explain it here a little bit. So they were 3-1 in Karachi. They led the league in points per 60 seconds. So that's 60 seconds is one hill. They were averaging 22.8 points per 60 seconds. So it's kind of like a per minute stat where I use per 10 minutes instead. But for this one, so if you times that by 10, it's easier for the viewer to imagine, but per 60 seconds, right? So that's 22.8. And then this stage, they are 0-2 on Karachi, and now they're in 11th in points per 60 seconds. They average 17.6. So to better visualize this for you, because I can tell that's a huge drop off, like huge drop off. But for you guys to visualize it, so last stage per 10 minutes, they were averaging 228 points on Karachi per 10 minutes, right? This stage, they're averaging 176 per 10 minutes, right? So that's a 50 point drop off you have, right? You can't be winning like that because look, their average margin of victory last stage was plus 33.8, right? That was their average margin on Karachi. So now take 50 points off of that, and you're losing that. Like you're in the negative, where they're negative 23, negative 32 average margin this stage. So you lose Invasion, you lose Skid Row, you lose all form in Karachi. Rio, which I have a sneaky suspicion they're a very good Rio team. They've played Rio once. They had 100% hold rate. They broke 50% of the hills. They beat Boston 250 to 120, I believe. Looked dominant on it. That's getting vetoed against them. I think they look good on Rio in practice, and I think that's why we're not seeing it. They didn't play sub base last stage. They don't really play sub base this stage. And again, so you look at Invasion, Karachi, Skid Row. They were 8-2 last stage. Now between 6-star Karachi and Vista, you are 2-5. So it's just big drop off there. Hard points in the dumps, right? Now they're S&D. They were 4-8 last stage. They were not a good S&D team. They were 1-5 on Invasion. I don't know why they kept playing Invasion. They were not a good Invasion team. Go into this stage, they're 2-7. Their high rise got way worse. They did play an Invasion, got bodied on it. They haven't been able to win a Rio. They've been getting bodied on Rio. It doesn't look good. And if you look back at the Rio that they won, I believe it was against Toronto, actually, in Stage 2, the Rio S&D, and they just haven't been able to replicate that in this stage. And then the final mode is Control. So Control took a big whack, too. You were 6-4 last stage. Now you're 2-5 this stage. So just a huge swing. And where did that happen? So high rise, 1-2 last stage, 1-2 this stage. So it's not high rise. Karachi, they don't really play in either stage. So it's Invasion, right? So Invasion, they were 4-1 last stage. They were the 5th best attacking team. They were 12-0 on defense. Perfect, right? So if you're the 5th best attacking team, you're 12-0 on defense. They were 3rd in the league in average ticks caps. So they were getting 3.7 ticks per attack on Invasion. It just means you're getting defense for all of your round 5s if you're not outright winning, because they did win some offenses. So you were a good Invasion team, right? This stage, you're not. You're 1-2. You're 0-6 on attack. You're 5-2 on defense. So you're losing some defense rounds. You're not able to win any of your offensive rounds. Your Invasion goes down the drain. There goes your map pool, because you only had one map last stage. So your map pool is gone, right? Map pool is gone in Hardpoint. Your map pool is gone in Control. Your S&D is fucking abysmal. It's been abysmal. Hasn't been good. By the way, they're 0-4 on LAN as well last stage in S&D. So not good. Not good for them. So then let's kind of scope out what's going wrong with some of these modes, right? So last stage, great breaking team in Hardpoint. This stage, same thing. So last stage they were first in break percentage, 33.7. They're not a very big rotating team, and that's continued this one. Rotating is kind of like a flawed stat, anyways, for me, because if you're winning the hill, you're on the back foot for the rotation. So I kind of look at chain percentage. So that's when you win back to back hills, and how often you're able to do that. They can do that. So I don't ding them as much for their rotation percentage because they were 10th last stage, 9th this stage, because they're a very good breaking team and they were a good holding team last stage. They were first at 83.1% hold rate last stage, and they were first in breaking. So they were doing a lot of good stuff. And that mostly came down to, Invasion, Skid Row, and Karachi. Now, this stage, they're still a very good breaking team. They're ranked third. They break 27.8% of the hills. They do a really good job of that. They still let up a lot of points. So I'm going to use one of the stats you see on broadcast a lot. So it's plus minus per, it will say like BO or HO. So this one is plus minus per break opportunity. So that's when you lose the rotation, the other team's holding. What's the plus minus at the end of the hill? So Vegas scores on average 12 points per break attempt, right? So when they're breaking, they get 12 points on the hill. The opposing team gets 30, right? That's a lot of points. You're allowing the other team to get 30 points on your break when you're breaking, which means you're losing. So you're negative 18.6 on your plus minus. You're losing almost 20 points when you don't win the rotation, right? So that's not good. So when they do break, they're barely breaking. When they don't break, they're giving up a ton of points. It's not great. And then you look at their holding. So in holding, they're actually ranked 11th now. So again, first last stage, 11th this stage. They're holding 71% of their hills. And again, now let's look at that plus minus stat again for per hold attempt now. So they get plus 14.9 on their holds, but they're losing 18.6 when they're breaking, right? So that means, let's say you hold once, you break once. That means you're down 4 points at the end of that, right? And I said at the beginning, they're not a good rotating team. So you're breaking more, right? So let's say out of 10 hills, you win 4 rotations, right? So boom, four wins, 4 holds, right? And then when you're on the other 6, you're breaking, right? So there's about a 5-point difference in that to begin with. So you're losing 5 points times 4, 20. You're losing about a good chunk. You're just losing way too much in the numbers game. And hardpoint is literally a game of seconds. Like we're seeing more and more games go down to the last like 30 seconds. You just can't be that inefficient on holding and breaking. You have to find one side of it. And their problem is they're just not good at any map besides Rio. There's no map where they're good at anything. 6-star, 12th in holding. Karachi, 11th in holding. Vista, 8th in holding. Vista breaking, 10th. 6-star, 5th for breaking, right? Like, it's just not good. Outside of Rio, it's just not good. Now let's look at their S&D and control. So both of these, it's very evident on what they're bad at. It's attack. Like, they are not a coordinated attacking team. So this stage, they are 12th in attacking win rate on S&D. They have a 30% round win rate on S&D, which is 12th in the league. They're winning 37% of their opening duels. That's 11th in the league. They have a 32% post-plant win rate, which is just god-awful. That's 12th in the league. And the problem is they're first in getting the bomb down. So they average 62.5% of rounds. They get the bomb down, right? Highest in the league. That's a great number, right? But when you only win 32% of that, that is horrid. That's horrible. Like, you can't be first in getting the bomb down and then 12th in winning those rounds. Like, this is not good. So terrible attacking team. So their post-plant setup's not good. Their attacking strats is not good in S&D. And now let's look at their control. So in control, they are 1-12 in attacking rounds this stage, 12th in the league. They average 3.3 ticks captures per round, 10th in the league. Just not good. By looking at the numbers, their invasion is kind of close. They still get a lot of ticks on invasion, Their life difference isn't massive, but they're just not closing out rounds. They're 0-6 on evasion. So their attacking in two modes is horrible. Your holding in hard points horrible. Your map pool got decimated in two modes. You just weren't good in another mode to begin with, and yeah. So what? How can Vegas improve? Will Vegas rebound? Right. So going back to when I said, "Oh, Johnny came in, he had good hard point numbers," and that's kind of what I was looking at. Like they got absolutely destroyed in control. It wasn't going to be good to begin with. In S&D, I wasn't really looking at him. I wanted to see how the others looked, and Nero looked good. Attach has to improve a little bit, but Johnny played decent. He was getting a lot of damage in. He had a couple of key plays. It was good enough for me. But the hard point was key. Like the hard point looked better. It looked a lot better. Granted, it's against Boston, but Boston has always been an okay respawn team. Like Boston just sucks terribly at S&D, and that was their undoing in this series too. But the fact that Vegas looked better at hardpoint was a key for me. So then coming into the major, because they were so bad at the qualifiers and because of the stint they had with ASUM was just so bad, where they just literally couldn't win a map, they are starting in the lower bracket at Toronto. Now they actually don't have the worst bracket. Like I can see a pretty clear path to the top six. To start off, they play the loser of Atlanta and Miami, and we all know Miami can't win maps on LAN. They are just have not had a good time. Granted, Miami has looked a lot better with Real, but I actually liked Vegas in that matchup. And then if they can beat Miami, they'll most likely play. So Boston plays the loser of LA Thieves in New York. And I actually have LA Thieves in New York as kind of a toss up. So if they get lucky and maybe the team that loses between LA Thieves and New York kind of tilts and then maybe has a misstep against Boston, or maybe they beat Boston but come into that match compromised versus Legion, there is a very decent chance that Legion gets top six. And now, why does that matter? So, on the season, Legion is currently 8th in the season standings. They have 110 CDL points. Technically, they're tied with 6th place LA Gorillas and 7th place LA Thieves. And 5th place is Minnesota with 120. So they're only 10 points behind that. The bad part is 9th place Carolina has 105. Miami in 10th has 100, and Seattle has 100. So everyone's very close, literally between 5th and 11th. And they're smack dab in the middle of that sandwich. So they actually need some CDL points here if they want to give themselves a better chance of qualifying for champs in the next stage. So they need to rebound. So that sense of urgency is there. They have a new roster. The bad part is they're probably traveling tomorrow. This is being recorded on a Monday. So they're probably traveling on Tuesday, which means not a lot of practice. They probably practice today to get reps in. They'll practice on Wednesday on LAN. But usually on LAN, you don't get S&D reps in. So this is going to be a team that hasn't really had the S&D reps. They will probably be better in hard point. Control is really a toss-up because they never really had a good map pool. They had Invasion, and now that Invasion kind of went away from them. It is concerning, but this team will have a sense of urgency about them, which I don't know if some of the teams that they're going to play early on in the major will. And they, well, again, will have, because they're in the lower bracket, they'll have Thursday to practice as well. And Thursday is when the teams in the lower bracket warm up the teams that are playing that day. So they'll get good reps. They'll be playing, Texas, Toronto, New York, Atlanta. They'll get one of them to practice against. So they'll get some good reps. It's just they need this win. So can Vegas rebound is the true question. I personally think they can. I think the core of the team's too good to not be at least in the top 8. I think Ojani did really well in challengers. He performed adequate, I would say, in the first series. It's kind of hard to gauge him across all 3 modes when control was such a bad stomping. But this major will be really telling. I personally have them finishing top 6, and then I think they're going to bounce back next stage and have a really good qualifier. But this will be one of their biggest weekends of the season. If they want to qualify for champs, they need to show the urgency and show that they can at least keep some of these maps close. Like, you cannot have three bad modes. Like, they have to show promise on at least two of them this weekend, or else they're going to be in trouble. Because if they lose to Miami in round one, Miami's going to leapfrog them in the standings, right? Carolina's going to play LAG if they lose to Texas. So Carolina could leapfrog them, right? And if Vegas loses to Miami and then Carolina beats LAG is going to stay ahead of Vegas. Carolina's get ahead of Vegas. Miami's going to get ahead of Vegas. So now you're going to be in 10th place, maybe even worse, and going into this final stage, and you're going to be on the back foot. So this is going to be one of the biggest weekends of the season for them. Again, watch out for their map pools. Watch out to see if they get Rio hardpoint in. That's going to be something I really want to see. If teams are letting them get Rio in. If they get Rio in, they have a much better chance of winning the series. And then watch how their holds are. If they're getting good holds, just fundamental, just good holds, get some confidence behind you. That can really turn the tides. Watch that for hardpoint, and then watch in their control and S&Ds. Watch their attacking rounds. I think with Ojani, they should have a lot more coordination. Hopefully, he's an S&D kid. I think he'll be calling out a little bit more on that. Again, just terrible coordination this past stage. They aren't going to be able to practice much in S&D, so watch out for that. If they show at least something in S&D attacking rounds, in control attacking rounds, it's a good sign for the future. So overall, I have Vegas rebounding, but time's going to tell. This is going to be a good weekend. So thank you guys for watching. Again, I'm going to go record the podcast. I'm going to record some more short clips like this. If you like this stuff, let me know. If you have any ideas for other content that you want to see from me, let me know as well. Personally, I have a couple ideas on videos. I want to start doing videos on explaining like terms that you're going to see on the broadcast, terms that you see for stats, because I have a ton of stats terms that I'm kind of like afraid to use because I know nobody's going to really understand it unless I'm able to like fully explain it. And that's why I just haven't really been using them, because they're more like small, like niche stats that I use. So there's stuff like that I also want to get out for content. But again, thank you guys. Let me know what you guys want to see out of me for content. And hopefully I'm going to be doing a lot more coming up in the next couple of weeks. Thanks, guys. Peace.